Richie, beforehand you did hint at the possibility of something like this happening, and it did.
Yeah, Des used the phrase just there that it was a statement result. They've been making statements like this now for a while. You know that if they're in any way near what they're capable of, they can score 2 and 3 and 4 quite freely. They don't even have to be at their best, and because of the quality they have up front, you know they're capable of doing that. And they were just ruthless in that second half. Do you remember half-time you asked, like, how are both teams going to approach the second half? They capitalised on one of many Upamecano mistakes to get the second goal, and then they could just sense they could sense blood. Like, Munich were all over the shop. They seemed to lose their heads. They lost their composure, and they were defending poorly. They got the third goal. I can't see any way back from Munich now. If you were to sit here and try and sell the second game as a competitive game, you're going to have to put an argument that City are going to concede 3-4 goals. I can't see that happening, or that City. Or that Munich will keep a clean sheet. Neither are going to happen. Yeah,
like Shay, when you know, looking at the way City are, the form that they're hitting, like the problem for everybody else in the Premier League and the 3 other teams left in the FA Cup and in this, is that they're just starting. It seemed to be starting to hit real top form at the perfect time.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why they're champions. They're champions of England. They've been around the block before. They know what it's like to obviously won the Premier League. This is the trophy we spoke about before the game that Pep and his team wants to get their hands on. And again, as you say, that's a statement to the rest of Europe as well. You know, they mean business. 3-0 against Bayern Munich, one of the powerhouses of European football. It's a big result. There was so many, as Ronnie mentioned on commentary, so many man-of-the-match performances. Seen John Stones there. He was playing centre-half. He was playing centre midfield, and he was right wing at one point, you know. So a fantastic performance for him. Bernardo Silva, Jack Grealish. I mean, Haaland gets the customary goal. We always see him score, doesn't he? I mean, there's so many positives tonight for City, and I don't see second leg being any issue. I think they'll be through to the semi-final after tonight.
Yeah. And Shay, when you look, I suppose, okay, we'd be talking about the brilliance of Manchester City, but also like the way Bayern folded. Now, is that down to the brilliance of Man City? They just broke them apart.
Well, I don't know. Psychologically, they were all over the shop. I mean, they came out second half. Sanny had a few good chances against Ederson, made some good saves at the start of the second half. But when City got the second, they literally just thought, it looked like they thought the tie was over. And still a 2-0 wouldn't have been the worst result, but it could have been 3-4, 5-0. City were that strong after that, but the heads went down in Bayern Munich. As you mentioned, Upamecano had an absolute nightmare. I don't know, his head looked scrambled in the second half. I don't know where his thoughts were, but so many chances City created, could have been a lot worse. Yeah,
just looking at the shots there of John Stones giving his jersey to somebody in the crowd with the sign, "Can I have your jersey?" Haaland the same. Like the kind of PR value, the link with those supporters who have not always loved this competition. Well, they certainly seem to love it now.
No, and I think there was boos for the Champions League anthem at the start. I think that's the usual now at Etihad. That you just get that comes with Champions League nights. But at the moment, like we've kind of been saying this conversation every year for the last few years, that this is the competition they want to win. Everything about the club has been set up for this. But the form they're in, the kind of performances they're given, the availability and lack of injuries of all their key players, the title is now in their own hand domestically. They're in the semi-final of a cup in a game that they're strong favourites to win. So I think now is this time where we often do every year, we start talking about the treble and the possibility of them doing that, because at the moment they look unbeatable.
Yeah, they do, and like you wouldn't put it past them. Like the treble would be and something else for them,
because it's not really been mentioned in the media, or the fans aren't talking too much about it. But when you see that performance tonight, when you see their form in the Premier League, and obviously the FA Cup semi-final in a couple of weeks as well, they're in a really strong position. Can they do it? Of course they can. I mean, people still talk about 99 when Man United won the treble, because it's such an amazing achievement. But this City team looks so strong, and again, I think I said at the start of the show, Pep will be judged on bringing the Champions League to the Etihad, and the form and the players all firing on all cylinders. They've got a real good chance.
I've just been told that in 99, when the treble was done by Man United, City were playing Gillingham.
Right.
In the playoff final.
The Paul Dickoff score, I think. He's my next door neighbour, so I'll give Paul a mention.
Well, I'm sure he did. Let's just say he did anyway. But, you know, for them now, OK, they have to navigate. And I know at times, look, stranger things have happened, but...
It's why it's so rare to win a treble. It's because you get to this point of the season and the smallest of margins will cost you. So they're playing as a Sheffield United in the Cup semi-final. You would assume they're strong favourites for that. But in the build-up to the league game against Arsenal, which so much rides on
the 26th,
they've had to deal with a double header against Bayern Munich and a cup semi-final. pressures and strains on a squad that Arsenal don't have to deal with. So does that give Arsenal a slight edge there? So those are the things. Like it's very, very difficult to win a treble. You can pump as much money into a club as you like, fill the squad with as much talent, but you're getting to the stage of the season now where the quality of the opposition, they can all beat you. So it's going to be very difficult. But look, why would you not back yourself to do it if you're in that City squad? Where's your weakness?
Yeah, sure. And you know, I remember Liverpool last year were going all the way to Paris in the final, and what was it, 60-odd games, 67 games or whatever they played, and you know how much that took out of them. I don't know if that debate's going to happen with this group, but like, it's a very deep squad. There's a lot of quality on the bench. Like, he'll be able to manage that, surely, will he?
For example, a couple of weeks ago when Haaland was injured.
Yeah.
And you can rely on Alvarez. He came on and played started against Liverpool. You know, was brilliant that day. He's a World Cup winner. You know, so the strength is there in depth. I mentioned Haaland before. I just think he is the final piece of this jigsaw. And I know we spoke about it every year because Pep's been at Man City for 7 years now. He's not won the Champions League. But it just feels with this squad of players, and they've had their bumps on the road this year, but now the results and the form and the confidence, and you see at the end, like, there's a real togetherness within the team. Yeah. They're all playing with a smile on their face. It's on, bring the next game on.
Like, Bayern Munich aren't a bad side. They're not a poor side, but they were made to look in that second half very, very ordinary. The way City played, the pressure they put on them, the lack of response from Munich. Thomas Tuchel, actually, after the recent cup game defeat against Freiburg, I think he did question the mentality of the players. They conceded a late goal he wasn't happy with. And that question, I think, is hanging over that team again after tonight. Because there was a collapse is too strong a word, but there was a failure to react to the going 2 down, and there was a total lack of response at the other end.
You were on in the evening, we were talking about their 100% record. We were talking about the fact that they'd only conceded 2 goals in the entire competition, and they have just been taken asunder by Manchester City. And Shay, I just want to ask you about Haaland. Like, you know, OK, all these records, but 45 goals. And the season, like, you know, we're only in April. There's still a fair bit to go. Where can he, like, 60, is that the new target?
The FA Cup, the Premier League, the Champions League, could we get to the final? There's plenty of games. There's plenty of games still to play.
They've 9 games left in the league, potentially 2 in the FA Cup, and if they go all the way to the final of the Champions League, that's another 4, which is 15 altogether.
Definitely 60 goals.
He could do.
He could.
But yeah, it's phenomenal. As I say, I've been there quite a few times this season, and to see him live, to see him in the flesh. You know, you see kids with a Haaland top at the stadium. They all want to see him. If we talk about superstars and stuff, he is that kind of league. Mbappe, Haaland, the previous ones, Ronaldo, Messi. People are going to that. They had to watch this guy in live, and you can see at the end of the game as well how much he enjoying playing for Manchester City, breaking these records. You know, his family are always at the game. He's always. He goes around the whole stadium after the game, thanks every corner of the. You know, his heart and soul's in the club. You know, and it's quite refreshing to see, actually. Yeah,
because he's such a talent, Richie. And you know, you go back to earlier on in the season, and there were people had doubts about signing him. Oh, you know, he doesn't play that way. City don't play the way he wants them to play, and it'll affect them. It'll slow them down. It's like the Jack Grealish thing I spoke about from last year. How wrong were some people?
45 goals later, there's a whole different conversation happening now. But it is an ongoing conversation as to whether... How do you assess the input or performance of someone who scores to the level he does, but is sometimes on the periphery of general play? And you can talk away about that all you like, but he's going to... Like, what would you predict that he'll finish with if he avoids injuries and they play all those games and get to the finals? Like, he's going to set a record that only he in the next few years will be able to beat. No one's come close to it. He doesn't seem in any way. Have you ever heard a story about him that he's off the field issues, there's attitude problems, commitment or professionalism? It's all positive about him. He seems to be completely committed. We'll be talking about this fella for a long time, but there's a sense of like there's an event watching him. Even from the start of the season, even when you watch games where you know City have won, you stay tuned to see if or how many he'll score. Because you know that we're watching in real time something we may never have seen before or again.
I think it was interesting, Des in the commentary said, I think he mentioned the number 14, that there were 14 games that Haaland hadn't scored in. So think of all the games that they've played and all the goals he's scored, and the kind of more dramatic statistic is about the games he has not scored in.
It's mental.
It's crazy.
Everything he does or doesn't do is a big story because he's a superstar, and if he doesn't score, he hadn't scored for a few games in the Premier League, people going, oh, he's not all this and stuff, you know, because the pressure's on him as well. And he's only 22, he's a young man still, he's relatively starting out in the game, isn't he? But nothing seems to faze him. As Richie says, he's got the right people around him, his family and his agents and stuff. They all seem to keep his feet on the ground.
Yeah, okay. Well, 6 minutes before Haaland got his goal, the expected goal, Bernardo Silva scored a really nice goal. Richie, talk us through this, and I want to get the goalkeeper's view on this as well.
We were having a conversation during the game, like, what words can we use to describe Upamecano's performance that, you know, I don't know how a player at this level is making such unintelligent decisions on the ball at that area of the pitch at a key moment in the game like this. This was not, by any shot, his worst mistake of the night. It was just his most costly. So Upamecano there tries to beat Grealish in front of his own goal, loses it. Haaland with a decent delivery. Shea here is in a better position to me to critique Summers' attempts there.
I mean, there's a lot of pace in the header, don't get me wrong now, but I think a keeper of his quality, you know, should save that. We've seen some great performances in Summer, you know, especially for his country as well and club, and I think he'll look back at that tomorrow, be a bit disappointed, I think.
Yeah, for sure, okay. Let's look at Haaland's goal then. 45 for the season, 76th minute. Describe.
Well, Alvarez come off the bench. You talk about bringing a sub off the bench, and he's a World Cup winner. Of course, he takes the corner originally, goes back out to him here now, and he sort of shimmies to go on his right, cuts on his left. And we talked about John Stones before the break, Dara. That's a phenomenal header from John Stones as well. You know, we talk about assists, but this is a proper setback to Haaland from John Stones. We thought there was a little bit of a VAR check, I think, on the offside when the ball comes in here now from Alvarez. But I think he's level, and you don't want to see that ruled out. In my eye, there he's level. And this is a brilliant header. I mean, you could question Pavard and Davies here in the back post don't really fancy jumping or competing with John Stones, but it's a brilliant header back to Haaland. And again, I was sort of shouting at the screen when we were watching it live, go and head it, like, you know, because it might have been easier. But who am I to tell Haaland after scoring 45 goals, should he head it or should he volley it home? But it's a good goal.
The other thing as well is okay, John Stones with the assist there, but his performance, you know, he's centre back, he's right back, he's in the middle of the field. His development over the last number of years has been it's been something else to watch, and it is one of the things that you hear about Guardiola, that he improves players. Now, how much has he improved that lad?
Well, phenomenal what he brings to the team as well. You know, we didn't show too much, but as you mentioned, he sometimes with the ball he's playing in centre midfield, receiving it, turning. And Richie, I think you mentioned off air. So one minute you're asking him to defend as a defender, the next minute you're asking him to play as a midfielder, have awareness, looking over his shoulder, where's the other players coming from, and everything's so calm with him, everything's so effective. And I mentioned before the break as well, he shielded one back to Ederson. Next minute he was playing right wing. You know, he seems to be all over the pitch, and it feels like you're playing with an extra man when John Stones is in that form. But obviously, you mentioned Pep Guardiola. He's the guy coaching him on a daily basis. But it's a lot of information to get in your head and get in your brain, and they look that comfortable on the pitch.
I think that's one of the most impressive things about it. Not only do you have the technical ability to be a defender in a central position when the opposition have the ball, and also be good enough to play in a midfield position, keeping possession and popping it around and being comfortable on the ball and being aware of everything around you, but to kind of mentally shift between roles, because they're very different roles. Like, if you're a centre half, you spend all week preparing to play against the front players. You know your position, you know most things in front of you, and you prepare mentally for that. If you're a midfielder, you prepare in a different way, because it's a different position with different threats, and you have different challenges. And he flits really fluidly between the two throughout the games, and he's been doing it for weeks. Yeah, he's been really, really class.
Cancelo used to do something similar, didn't he, as well at times? But it's like a Guardiola. I think Kimmich, actually, who played for Bayern tonight, he sort of has these. Pep has these project players almost. You know, that this is a pet project. He did it an awful lot with Kimmich in the 3 years at Munich. Turned him from a right back to a midfielder to a centre half, and it's just this constant kind of improvement with these fellas.
He does. You get, I mean, the word, intensity and relentless and all of these things we've been using to describe Guardiola, and the people who work for him use that about him. But he does seem to come in and look at a team or look at a player and then and think beyond what is obvious to everyone else. And just to say, well, what more can we get out of players? How fluid or creative or different can we be with the system? What's the demands of the particular opposition? And how can we go and win the game while playing at the same way to keep, you know, possession football, and a high quality stuff. So
you mentioned Cancelo there as well. Interesting the reception he got when he came on the pitch.
Yeah,
you know, he's not a great reception from the City fans, and he's still contracted to I think 27 or something. And he's not starting every game for Bayern, so it looks like in the summer they're going to have a little bit of a problem on their hands.
The moral of the story is don't fall out with Pep, and you'll get a bad reception at the City of Manchester Stadium. The Munich chances, Shay. Let's have a look at what they created in the second half.
We thought like what they would do second half and what would Tuchel say at half time to them, but the best chances fell to Sané, and of course Ederson matched every one. It was 3 sort of longish range shots from that one, moves a lot, and Ederson just gets a block on it. And again, you know, this is all coming this first 10-15 minutes of the second half. This is a brilliant save from Ederson, really sharp, really quick down to his left. He gets a bit of luck because Ake sweeps up the rebounds. But again, this was Munich coming out thinking, yeah, they mean business. They think they're very much in this tie. They've got a great chance of getting through to the semi-final. This is a more long-range shot again, but Ederson blocks it away, bangs it away for a throw-in. There's a delict header from a corner. This could have went anywhere if we'd honest. It's hit off Ake, and they managed to scramble it clear. But you think at the start of the second half, it's a real positive start from Tuchel and his team. You think, oh, they fancy getting something here. But then we mentioned they crumbled after that, and he'll be disappointed, Tuchel, after this.
And just from a goalkeeping point of view, Shay, with Ederson, like, you know, for going back a while, it was all about the passing statistics and playing out from the back, and he's brilliant at that. Yeah. But, you know, the bread and butter stuff, the shot stopping, his reflexes, like, are you a big fan of him?
Yeah, people talk about Ederson. They talk about how good he is with the ball at his feet, like, but they forget to talk about your first job as a goalkeeper is keeping the ball in the net, and people should never waver away from that, because even tonight he showed again he's been brilliant, and he's been brilliant in the Man City shirt since he's been there. And I don't just mean with his feet; I mean with his hands as well, being so consistent.
Yeah, he's a proper goalkeeper, as they say. Okay, we have some more City chances here. Like, I don't know, 3-0. It could have been a fair bit more.
It could have been, but I think 3-0 is a fair reflection. Once again, Upamecano here, we're not sure what he was trying to do. Himself and Sommer kind of getting each other's way. And you have to remind us that this is like European superpower, Bayern Munich. Look at how they're, in inverted commas, defending there. Like, it's really chaotic stuff. And City just took full advantage. You can see him here. Grealish does really well, draws 2 or 3 defenders to him. No one goes with the runner. Ake there, he's not fully set when he takes the shot, and you'd expect the keeper to save. But here again, Munich react really, really slowly to a short corner kick that was taken. De Bruyne is always going to put in a ball of that quality, and again, a player in the 6-yard box has time to chest it down and then volley it. And again, they can't get a man down properly here or clear it, and they're fortunate here that this doesn't end up in the back of the net. Really, really good save there from Sommer. Alvarez had come on then in the second half, and he made an impact here. He shoots from distance. I do think the goalkeeper had this covered, and Rodri here, header from a corner kick. So yes, you can see from the footage here, they could have, and possibly on another night could have scored more than 3, but they should have no gripes with a 3-0 win. It's what they deserved. I'm just curious with, like, okay, we saw the crazy defending 4 minutes into the start of the second half, and then the Upamecano meltdown. Like, and then the rest of the team folded. So was the Upamecano mistake, was that the kind of trigger for the rest of them just to go, oh, we're done? Because it was quite dramatic the way they folded. It was, and like, you don't want to jump in too heavily on the fella. Like, he had one of those nights. Let's be one of those nights. Yeah. You can have a night where bad day at the office. Yeah. Where, thank you, Shay. Where you know your touch can be bad, or you miss a chance, or you do something inexcusable. But his decision making was kind of so poor. In addition to his quality, again in inverted commas, on the ball, and his defending as well. Yeah. So when a player in that prominent position is having such a bad night, everyone else, the ripple effect is going to spread out to everyone. But he wasn't the only one who had a bad night. He was just the one who gave the most noticeable poor performance. In the build-up to the Ireland-France game, Desailly was saying himself and Konate, they would be the best centre-half pairing for France ever. Now, maybe he needed Konate beside him tonight, but it's just like that he's an exceptional footballer. I think Desailly was behind the sofa tonight if he was watching that performance. I'd say he probably was. He was, as we said, he looked like he was scrambled. His head was scrambled. I think the mistake for the second goal, and then after that, he was trying stuff he shouldn't have been trying. But it's mad because we talk about Thomas Tuchel, one of the best managers. We think we all believe in world football. You set your team up how to defend. You set your team up how you're going to counter-attack with the pace up top, and then your centre-half, your main, highly spoken about player, does something like that. And then after that, as his head seemed scrambled, he was all over the shop, and it was a frustrating night for him, I'd say. It certainly was. Now, maybe this kind of says more about me than you, but I've never heard John Stones interviewed before, Shay, and who's from Barnsley, but he's very
calm, just taking everything in his stride. And I suppose he plays that way as well.
Yeah, he does. He plays with a real calmness. And even they say, and he's worked with Pep now for a good few years, hasn't he, John Stones? But he says he's learning still every day, and that's we talk about the mastermind that Pep Guardiola is. But at the same time, we talk about the calmness and the coolness on the pitch. He's got that same aura off the pitch, you know. And he makes a good point about the players who don't play as well, because we always talk about the 11 who starts and stuff, and that's a big job for Pep as well, is to keep these players. You've got Alvarez, for example, who's a World Cup winner, and he's asked to sit on the bench most weeks, you know. He comes on, sets a couple of goals up, or scores goals, or he assists. You know, so these players that don't play are important as well. But Stonesy, what a performance tonight. Man of the match for sure. What a great performance, and just looked so calm in everything he done.
Yeah. But I think one of the things on that point, like, it is an important role for a manager to ensure that the whole squad is tuned in and motivated and ready to go if needed. But his handling of Cancelo, I think, is interesting, because what we were hearing at the time was Cancelo was unhappy with not playing regularly and wants to play regular football, and we can read into that what we like. So was he a bit of a toxic presence around training? Was he not putting it in? Was he having a whinge? He was a problem figure that Pep obviously wanted to get out the door. And I think that sends a message to everyone as well. Like, Cancelo, at some point, we were saying off air, was one of City's most consistent players. He was brilliant. So many times in shows like this, we'd highlight him and we do a package on him. And kind of Pep's management has come in and said, OK, I call the shots. You all can play. I know you're not happy with playing, but you're gone. And I think that's really effective management as well.
Yeah, it's a big decision to make.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big decision, because Cancelo was a brilliant player last season, and then it's as you say, it's more like maybe a message to the rest of the squad as well. You know, it's Pep's way or the highway, and he has so much power at the football club, you know, with the hierarchy and what he's done at the football club, and, you know, the Premier League titles he's won, and we're talking about the treble tonight. You know, maybe if they won the treble this year, you know, will Pep run off to the hills with a cigar on, perhaps? I don't know. But
this is interesting, because, like, OK, you could throw into the mix, and listen, Arsenal fans, you probably want to turn off the TV now at this stage. No, but we do have the City-Arsenal game on the 26th. The Cup semi-finals, OK, and again, Brighton fans and Sheffield United, let's say City win and Man United win, and City would like the idea of beating Man United in an FA Cup final, and then they go and win this. He has a contract until 25. He did, under the mental toil of you know, his time at Barcelona, he left earlier. He said, right, I'm done. Could the same thing happen here? If they go and do that treble and match what Man United have done and beat them in the mix, it kind of wouldn't be unlike him to just say, right, I'm done.
Yeah, possibly. And this spell, obviously, at Man City has been the longest at any club he's been at, you know, managerial-wise. So I know part of his family's moved back to Barcelona. His daughter's at the university over there, for example.
Okay.
And there'll be things pulling them back to Catalan or whatever, you know. But at the same time, I think he has got so much power at Manchester City. He has got so much say, and he is the main man. The whole club revolves around him. So the powers that be, Caldoon and stuff, will be going, hang on, whatever it takes to keep Pep for another few years, we have to do that. And especially on the back of a treble, the last thing they want is Pep going off to the hills after that, because that's the time he build again.
You would assume he's not going to leave until he wins that Champions League.
Yes.
And obviously he can't stay there forever, and they can't continuously fail to win it and he stay there. But given the years he's put in, the money, the preparation, the squad building, the kind of constant turnover of players and the development of the team, and how close they are, every year they're one of the favourites. You would assume he'll stay there till they win it.
But again, you have to look across the city at Manchester United. When Fergie left, what happened there? So in the Man City hierarchy's heads will be thinking,
they're not going to. It's a different time, though, Shay.
It's a different time, I know.
The control over the club and the structure that's there now.
Yeah, but again, who goes in after Pep Guardiola? Who could you sit here tonight and
Vincent Kompany, sorry, I'll just throw it out there.
Vincent Kompany, yeah, is a good shout. But at the same time, like, how big are them boots to follow with the job Pep Guardiola? If he wins a treble this year and you go, OK, go and find me a manager for next season, how do you follow that man?
There's a lots of ifs and buts and all that stuff in there.
So forget the other two competitions for the moment and stick to the Champions League. We don't know how Chelsea and Real Madrid will go, but we'll assume Real Madrid. If there's any kind of logic or rationale to football, Real Madrid will beat this Chelsea
hang on a
team.
second.
And we know there isn't, but let's say there is. Like, a two-legged tie with Real Madrid in the semi-final is just about as difficult as you can get. If they get over that, they're going to be a final against, we'll assume, Napoli, maybe Inter. Like, they're the tightest of margins are going to call those games, and that's just one of the three competitions.
Fascinating. OK, you can follow it all here.